Durant pull-up jumper off the rim and in. Oh! And the Thunder win! All right, come on, let's sing the Thunder song. When you hear the sound of thunder, don't you get too scared. Just grab your Thunder buddy and say these magic words.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Thunder Buddies podcast, a postseason edition. And guess what? Season's over, which means sponsorship's over, which means free agency's coming. And it ain't just basketball players. The Thunder Buddies podcast, advertisement-wise, sponsorship-wise, is a free agent.
This is big news.
It is big news.
It's a big opportunity.
Bidding is open.
Yeah. Start high. Come high.
Yeah.
We need a good sponsor. Preferably someone in the restaurant food industry.
Why? So we can eat?
Well, that's a bad idea. You don't need to eat anymore on this podcast. You've done enough of that.
Yeah. You sure Reese's Pieces shouldn't?
No sponsors by Reese's. No.
Yeah.
We stopped at Chick-fil-A about 14 times. It felt like on the road
Chick-fil-A
back and
be a
forth.
good sponsorship. You know they got the back end dough to throw up front,
Yeah.
and then I mean, I will gladly pump up Chick-fil-A every podcast.
I'll pump them up too. I gotta.
Oh, this is the guy who called them overrated.
Yeah, you weren't supposed to say that in case they're listening.
I mean, they said they're the greatest chicken sandwich
That's right.
ever.
That's right. It's a great chicken sandwich if they want to bring some in for us twice a week.
Ooh, man, free agency feels good. I mean, like, you know, we had our rookie contract out of the way. I mean, it was good.
Yeah. First time unrestricted free agents. Feel good.
It does feel good.
You know, the taco place. What's the taco place over on 23rd?
Fuzzy's Taco.
No, not Fuzzy's. Well, Fuzzy's too. That's not bad. But Big Truck. I like Big Truck tacos.
That's good too. There's a lot of good places to
yeah,
eat.
man.
Just saying.
Yeah. In case you guys, want some advertising, we can drop your name a couple times.
Anyway, it's the season that just ended.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
people want to hear about. I don't know that they want to hear about it, actually. Thunder.
It's a big off season.
It's a huge offseason for this franchise, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to because this isn't our last Thunder Buddies podcast of the season. We got draft one coming up. We'll maybe even have an NBA Finals one. We'll definitely have a free agency one. I'll
be at Summer League. You can call me if you're not out in California by then.
Well, I will be. There's no doubt about that.
We'll figure out a way to do a podcast from Summer League.
Yeah. Summer League. Sure, if something happens, if they sign a big free agent, if there's
So
any
the Thunder
personnel.
Buddies aren't going anywhere. That's what we're trying to tell you.
But they are naked of advertisement at this point.
Yep.
So anyway, we should probably look back a little bit
Okay.
before we look ahead. West Finals. Spurs winning 6. Was the game the other night. I mean, you lose in overtime. I thought the Thunder played okay. They had they only really played like 7 guys. Like 7 guys played big minutes. Only 5 guys scored. I
wasn't surprised at the 7 guys playing. I figured KD and Russ were going to go all 48,
45
if
to
not,
48.
and then it went in overtime. So, that was expected. I was surprised at how much Derek Fisher played. That surprised me.
Yeah, 33 minutes, the last 22 minutes of his career. Do you think there was for some reason I just keep envisioning this moment in the huddle, like mid-third, they're down. Remember the Spurs go on that run?
Mm-hmm.
And with about 5 minutes left in the third, Fisher came in the game and he didn't leave. He played the final like 21, 22 minutes, including OT.
Right.
I just envisioned this moment, Fish with his hockey beard and like looking at the scoreboard. They're losing in what could be his final game, just strolls over to Brooks like, I'm going in. And I ain't coming out. And Brooks just nods his head, then looks at, whoever he took out. Fish for Lamb. And then he just goes in and
I thought we were about to get another Robot Brooks impersonation.
Oh, yeah, my bad. He looks at Jeremy. Derek wants to play now. Use it next to me on the bench.
Oh, man. You guys got to see this guy, dude. We got to get that on video. We have to get your Robot Brooks on video.
All right.
Somehow. Yeah.
Vine. It should be Vine, right?
Oh, we need more than 8 seconds.
Yeah, that's true.
It was a bad loss, I thought. They competed, they played hard, but when Tony Parker was announced, they came by press row and they said Tony Parker out with left foot soreness, whatever it was. Ankle soreness. And we're all thinking, hey, the Thunder's already up 7. No Tony Parker. They're about to run away with this thing. Game 7. Here we come.
Yeah.
You're starting to book travel to San Antonio. Like it's.
I had Southwest, a tab of Southwest open because we were talking about flying back.
You know, like, and then all of a sudden, they rip off a 37-20 quarter.
That third quarter was fatal.
Yeah.
I know it went to OT, but you can't lose 37-20 in a third quarter with your season on the line without their best player on the Spurs playing. And the biggest part of that quarter was you had an awful quarter. It's 30-20. The Spurs have outscored you 30-20 in the first 11 and a half minutes. And then on top of that, you give up open three and then like a turnover or something and then a 4-point play the next play. 7-0 run in the last 30 seconds to turn an awful quarter into like a, just like I said, fatal quarter, basically. 37-20.
The Thunder should have outscored them 37-20 and put the game away in that period without Tony Parker on the floor. So not a good period, not a good second half for the Thunder. Nice comeback to, you know, after getting down by as many as 12 in the fourth quarter, to come back and to force overtime. This team's resilient. You figured they weren't going to lay down.
Yeah, and the thing that should, I don't want to say take off Thunder fans, but like give them a little bit of what if is, look, we both would have picked the Spurs down in San Antonio for Game 7, but it sounds like Parker would have been
that's the thing.
At best limited.
They're
he
still
might not
talking about him
Can
in
he
the
play
finals.
Game 1?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It would have been, what's today, Monday? The game would have been, 5 hours from now.
Right.
If Parker's limited or he's not playing, like the Thunder's maybe not favored because as we saw, the Spurs can still beat you, but they suddenly have a shot in that game.
Yeah, what if, you know? But here's the thing I want to get your opinion on. The small ball Brooks went to down the stretch, or actually, as you mentioned, for like the last 15, 20 minutes of the game. Derek Fisher, Reggie Jackson continuously getting switched on the Boris Diaw and Tim Duncan.
Yeah.
Agree, disagree, hate it, love it. What were your thoughts on that?
I didn't like it because, like you said, the switch. Like Popovich is such a good coach. He's just figured out, this is how the Thunder want to play. But we have this personnel that can, and we know they're switching, and we can just get mismatches. That's what he's thinking in his mind, and he was very good at doing it. How many times did you see Duncan on Jackson the post, Duncan on Fisher, Diaw on Jackson, something like that, and they exploited it. I can kind of understand why he wanted that lineup in. I mean, nobody else was playing well. Butler didn't even get a shot, but he's been, he was pretty bad the whole playoffs. Adams wasn't good in the game. I mean, who do you go to?
Might have to go back to Kendrick Perkins.
Yeah. I don't know.
The funny thing is most of the players talked about, on the Thunder side at least, how it didn't hurt them, how they still got stops.
It seemed to hurt them.
It seemed like it hurt them big time. And it's not even that they scored a ton. It's the confidence, I think, that the Spurs got from it. The fact that they were able to establish a rhythm when, if you're playing defense, solid defense, you eliminate them and them from establishing a rhythm.
Yeah.
And as soon as they were able to just dump it down to Duncan or Diaw on the block, that just made everything flow much easier for them.
True. They got some free throws off it. But I mean, if you think back on it, they weren't getting just like easy bucket after easy bucket. Like Duncan hit a fadeaway that hit the rim like probably 10 times before
the roll.
Fell in. That, like I said, they got some free throws, but it wasn't like scoring every time. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think it was as big an issue as everyone said because I don't think, if Brooks says, all right, then we'll go to Perkins, I mean, everyone's then going, oh.
Why is Perkins in the game?
Why is Perk in the game?
Yeah.
Look at our offense with Perk.
My thing is just don't switch.
Yeah.
Why is the switching that necessary? I don't think it's...
I don't know if it was that necessary, but I remember Brooks saying something about the third quarter. They just kept coming off screens and getting shots. Ginobili was getting looks that it forced them to start switching.
I think that's the biggest critique of Scott Brooks is the in-game adjustment.
Yeah.
The inability to recognize
because his in-series adjustments were all right.
Right, from game to game. But the inability to recognize it quickly what's being done on the floor and making an adjustment to that. Whereas if switching is your philosophy, fine. But you have to. There comes a point when you can't rely on that or solely on that. You have to say, okay, we're going to get out of this and go to something else. And that moment never came.
No, and it ended up being their undoing.
Among other things.
Yeah, I mean.
Turnovers, Durant and Westbrook turning it over 7 times apiece. That's unacceptable. The Spurs scoring 33 points off of those turnovers. They gave up 16 offensive rebounds. It's just, they played a pretty decent game, but there were so many little things that they could have just cleaned up. And if they did, we would, as you said, we'd be getting ready for Game 7 right now.
But instead,
we're getting ready for the offseason.
Like you said earlier, the biggest offseason in this franchise's history, would you say?
I'd say so.
Yeah, I mean, they gotta surround their stars.
You've been to the conference finals 3 times. You've been to the NBA finals once. You've seen the last 2 years how one injury can derail everything. Kevin Durant's got 2 more years left on his deal. 14, 15, 15, 16. Russ has 3 years left. The clock is ticking. Regardless of what Russell Westbrook says, the clock is ticking.
Wait, what clock?
What clock? There's no clock.
Well, don't work like that. Time don't move.
Oh, man. Russell Westbrook is a piece of work. Shout out to Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
That man played his butt off in the postseason.
No doubt about it. He was the best player on this team, as we've discussed plenty. Yep. I mean, he just – and this is going to sound ridiculous. Maybe not. He was the second best player in the playoffs behind LeBron, I thought.
I would agree with that. My respect for Russell Westbrook went through the roof in the postseason. The way he competes, the way he changed his mindset after Game 5 of the Memphis series.
Yeah, because he was bad in those first 5. He was
bad. He was taking bad shots. He was taking all those three-pointers. And then something clicked with Russ. And it's not even the way he was playing. It's the attitude, the maturity, the approach. There was a moment in Game 5 down in San Antonio where he yelled something at Serge Ibaka, and Ibaka wasn't having it. I don't know if you could see it from where you were sitting. Ibaka went right back at him.
This is Game 5 in Memphis?
Game 5 in San Antonio.
San Antonio, yeah.
And Ibaka, he was basically like, dude, shut up. Don't talk to me like that, which is fine. He's a grown man. He don't want to be yelled at on the court. So Russell, in the past, would have probably not let it go. This time, Russell just kind of walked away. You could see him motion his hands to the ground like, calm yourself down. Not to Serge, he was talking to himself. He was like, calm yourself down. Don't, just let it go. You made your point. And he moved on. Things like that, to me, show the growth and the maturity in Russell Westbrook. Not just his style of play, but his attitude, how he talks to his teammates, how he approaches the game from a mental standpoint.
Yeah, he's viewed, it's weird because he's viewed as this guy that is like, the way he plays, people kind of present him as this guy that's all about numbers. I need to get my shots up. I need to get my points. I need to get my shine. But I mean, he truly is about winning. The thing of his mindset, which makes it look like he's all about his numbers, is that in his mind, their best chance to win is I'm taking over at all times. But
and in his defense, sometimes that's the case.
Yeah, no doubt. Sometimes it isn't, but in his mind, it kind of always is. But I got no issue with that.
I disagree, and I'm gonna defend him again. In the fourth quarter, he defers to Kevin Durant. He'll go set that pin down screen, 7 straight possessions. He'll pass the ball and go stand on the wing and wait for an outlet pass, which probably is not going to come. Russell Westbrook defers to KD a lot more than people realize in the last 5 minutes of games.
Yeah, he had a great playoffs, and I think you're right as far as there's a lot of ways he's never going to mature as far as a lot of time with the media.
I don't even care about that.
Exactly, I'm just saying. But in ways on the court that matter, people maybe not be giving him enough credit, but he is maturing.
Yeah, and there's still times where it's out of hand, out of control. He needs to settle down.
And there'll always be those games, I think. And guess what? it makes him even more entertaining.
It makes him more entertaining. I think there are times he needs to settle down more. I put on Twitter and in the blog, I said anybody who's still ripping Russell Westbrook after this postseason is an idiot.
You want his numbers?
Give us his numbers.
19 games, 27.7 points per game, 8 assists per game, 7.3 rebounds, 2.1 steals.
What'd he shoot?
Give me 1 second. I think near 50%. I bet you he shot better percentage than Durant. Although that Memphis series ain't gonna help.
But he turned it up.
Yeah. Overall, he shot. This thing would load. Never mind. 42%. But
like you said, that Memphis series,
38% in the Memphis series.
Yeah, if you go from
49%
the last two
series.
games, Are you on Basketball Reference?
No,
you should be. Shout out to Basketball Reference.
He only shot 40% in the Spurs series. That's surprising.
No, I mean they struggled. Durant and Westbrook struggled with some inefficiency in that series a little bit. But no, I was saying if you're still ripping Russell after this postseason, you're an idiot. If you're just blindly blaming him for Thunder losses and saying he needs to get the ball to Kevin Durant more, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. The guy is the heart and soul of this team. He has the biggest heart. He has, I think, the most competitive drive in basketball. If you put like Kobe Bryant has been hurt. If we're gonna exclude Derrick Rose from the point guard conversation because of his injuries, then we got to exclude Kobe Bryant from the competitive will to win argument because of his injuries. To me, Russell Westbrook has the biggest will to win in the NBA.
How about a guy like LeBron?
LeBron's up there, but I think Russell's is even more than LeBron's. I think Russell has it more than LeBron.
Interesting. You want to know an interesting stat in the playoffs? Free throws, which Kevin Durant has been leading the NBA in free throw shooting as far as percentage and attempts and makes the last few years. But in the playoffs, in the 19 games, Durant goes 132 of 163. That's 81%, and he shot 163. Westbrook goes 145 of 164. He makes 88% and shoots one more. That's interesting.
Something was up with Durant. I talked a lot about him on the last podcast. Something was going on with him. He said he's at peace with how he played, though. So he said he left it all out there, and he's at peace. So,
do you think this was good for him in the long run?
Who?
Durant.
What was good for him?
This kind of playoffs. I mean, people are kind of mentioning it as these struggles can maybe help him realize what he's needs to improve on moving forward, similar to a LeBron 2011.
I don't think he's feeling that pressure yet.
How do you think?
I think he might go through one more of these before we're gonna say, oh, this is what he needed. Even though this one should have been, I don't think we're done.
Like
seeing
you're
him
saying,
struggle.
going into next year or going into next year's playoffs, do you think there'll be any kind of stories on like he's a great offensive player, great regular season guy, but he just can't, carry
if it
a team
happens
in the
again
playoffs?
next year, that's the story.
Okay,
that's the story. But people aren't, like I said people aren't paying attention. Like there was Ethan Sherwood Strauss wrote a small piece on ESPN.com on True Hoop, the True Hoop blog, about how Kevin Durant is not as good as LeBron James yet. Obvious statement, of course, but he kind of broke down some bits and pieces of his game. It wasn't a really in-depth story, but it was one of the first critical pieces nationally that questioned Kevin Durant. And I think you're going to see that more and more over time. The fact that Kevin had a great regular season, but in the postseason, last year he got a pass because Russell wasn't around. This year, the pass was starting to become a thing when Serge Ibaka missed those first two games. The Mr. Unreliable headline took pressure off of him, took the attention off of him.
No, it put him on him in a different way, though. Like people defending him.
People defended him. That's what I'm saying. It took the attention away from where the focus really should have been, and that was his struggles. So Durant continues to get passes from the national media, from, I think, in-house, definitely. They're never going to say a bad word about him. So I think he's going to have one more disappointing postseason before you hear that criticism and before he realizes, I can't do this anymore. I can't play like this anymore in the playoffs. Derek Fisher talked about it in his exit interview. There has to be a turning point where you realize you go through an experience and you say, okay, you have to be the best. You can't settle for anything but the best. The one person I thought of was Kevin Durant.
How about what Perk said about him?
Perk said a lot about him. He said he needs to get stronger. He said he felt like he got tired a couple times in the postseason. What else did he say?
I thought Perk, not just about Durant, I thought Perk was interesting talking about, what the Spurs have, what the, Heat have, that unselfish, that no agenda basketball, which the Thunder need to full 82 games, every playoff game need to commit to.
Yeah, that was the other thing, the agenda-free basketball. And to me, that was the theme of exit interviews on day one.
You want to talk a little exit interviews? Best of, worst of?
Sure.
Let's start. Best of little Kendrick Perkins. What?
The best of Kendrick Perkins, he kept it real.
Yeah.
And
he's never been accused of anything but.
Some people look at that as a bad thing, especially the way he kind of spoke out on some things yesterday.
Yeah, he did.
But I looked at it as a great thing because there needs to be accountability. It needs to come from the head coach. It needs to come from the teammates holding each other accountable, and it needs to come from each individual player holding himself accountable. And to me, that was the first time that I've really seen teammates publicly hold each other accountable. And it wasn't just Kendrick Perkins. Nick Collison came in talking about being more mature next year, wiser, smarter. Derek Fisher, as we mentioned, talked about it. Russell Westbrook even talked about it. They need to come back more mature, smarter, wiser.
Surge a little bit. Tried to a little bit.
Yeah, as much as you can understand.
Yeah. He did keep going, sacrifice. We must.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, when that many people are talking about sacrificing, that tells you that that's a real issue with this team. And so I think this team has a lot of growing up to do.
Who stays, who goes? Derek Fisher.
Fish is gone.
Yeah, what an exit interview that was. There was two incredible exit interviews, I thought. Number one, Derek Fisher, just for, it was like basically his goodbye to the NBA, although, he'll be doing even more interviews than ever as a coach. But as a player, I thought he was great. And like you said, he was real honest. You basically wrote your whole story yesterday through his eyes.
Thanks, Fish.
Yeah, right.
He wrote my story. I wanted to say it to him when he answered one of my questions. I was like, thanks, Fish. You just wrote my story. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And then who was the second?
Steven Adams.
Steven Adams.
We can talk about that after we do who stays, who goes.
All right. So, yeah, we both agree Fish is gone.
Yeah, well, he's going to be coaching against him next year at some point. Where do you think, Lakers or Knicks?
Well, a report today said the Lakers are cooling on him, and he's the front runner for the Knicks job. So, if I was Derek Fisher, I'd take the Lakers job.
But that would have to have been offered. And
we don't know that they even want him. But
been offered. But you assume the Knicks. It sounds like, Jackson's really been waiting to talk to him.
Yeah. A head coaching job is a head coaching job, to be honest.
And those are two, for starting point places, the New York Knicks and the Los Angeles Lakers.
Right. And he talked about that the other day, about how it was surreal to him how the day the year that he says he's going to retire, those two jobs come up. And how he always thought about taking a step back and giving it some time.
Going on a sabbatical, he said.
Giving it some time and then weighing his options. But, he's about to do what Jason Kidd did and step right into coaching. It's going to be pretty cool to see him as coach of the Knicks or whoever. I'm hoping he coaches the Lakers. I want to see him 4 times a year.
Yeah.
3 at a minimum.
He'll be a good coach quote. Man.
I hate transcribing Derek Fisher, though, man. That takes forever. He was asked 8 questions yesterday, and he went on for 20 minutes. Russell Westbrook was asked 17 questions, and it took him 10 and a half minutes. And that was a great day for Russell Westbrook. He's matured also with the media. He's answering questions more. He's elaborating. He's speaking his mind, expressing himself. He's done a lot better.
Yeah, Westbrook was good. And I think we've talked about it in the past, especially last year when he got injured and he just was inactive for the rest of the playoffs. He's really good when the competitive juices aren't amped up and he's in the season. It's like season's over. I don't need to, be wanting to kill everyone I see right now. I got a few months to lay back, and then it seems like he calms down. He's actually, pretty good with the media. But if he's in season or if he's after a game or right before a game, he's not trying to talk to the media.
Right.
So I think that plays into it. But
what else stood out to you for exit interviews?
Are we doing who stays, who goes? We doing exit interviews?
I don't know. You got me all confused.
I know.
You're supposed to be
I got
hosting this
myself
thing.
confused. Yeah, terrible host.
Come on.
I'm trying to get a sponsor over here.
You're not doing us any favors.
No. Caron Butler.
He gone.
He didn't
even talk to the media today.
No.
He was supposed to do
you
his
think
exit
there was
interview.
something bigger than that, or you think? I mean, they say it was just.
Shoot, yeah, I think it was something bigger than
they
that.
say it was just he slipped out because
yesterday I was told he was ill. Today we're told he slipped out and it was a member of the organization's fault. They didn't get him when they were supposed to. Let me tell you something. This organization has these players on leashes. Like there's not a thing that these players do from a responsibility standpoint that the team doesn't know about. So a player just doesn't walk out of the door without them knowing about it.
I don't know.
Not here. So yeah, there's something more. There's something more there. I'm not saying that it's like a huge deal, but I think there's something more there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd guess Butler's gone, but I wouldn't. I would say there's a better chance Butler's back than Cephalosha's back.
I agree.
So moving on to Tavos.
Tavos. I mean, we already kind of wrote his eulogy
after game 2.
Yeah, after game 2. That was like a week or 2 ago. How long ago was game 2? It feels like forever.
I don't know. Days confuse me at this point.
Yeah. Jeez. Yeah, he's gone.
Yeah.
And he didn't even make any bones about it.
No, he was cool. I really enjoyed that final interview. I asked him a ton of questions.
Yeah, you were grilling him.
I kind of was, but he was cool with it. I thought he was just like
he as I said on one of these last podcasts, the man is all pro.
Somebody had to grill him.
You're right.
But yeah, he was you could tell he was he probably should have got benched because he was struggling so much offensively, but you could tell he was a little frustrated. I think just about, hey, I've for 5.5 years I've been giving my all to this organization, and then I get benched in my last run, basically.
Caron Butler too. He comes here. He could be in Miami right now, preparing for game 1. He chose the Thunder. And then gets benched in his final game. If I'm Caron, I'm ticked off. Now, I'm not saying he shouldn't have been benched. People kept asking on Twitter during Game 6, why is it Caron playing? Have you seen this series?
Yeah, he's not.
He wasn't helping on either end of the floor. But if I'm Caron Butler, I'm like, hey, I'm a 10-year vet. I got championship experience. I'm a former All-Star. I'm proven. I could have helped. So, yeah, I'm ticked off this morning.
Yeah.
But I think he's gone.
He
gone.
Yeah, I think Tavo's gone. Who else? Perk. I do not think he's getting amnesty.
Perk
I think
will
he's
be back. Here's a question on Perk. Does he start next year?
Oh, that is a good question.
Because in his exit interview, he did not sound like a man who's ready to pass the torch.
No, not at all. I think that Adams starts because, and this is not – I'm not killing Perk, but, man, Adams is – shouldn't he play 35 minutes next year?
If he can stay on the court for 35 minutes.
Or should he be under for meaningful games played?
I was wrong. Moving on.
We should have gone back and looked at our over-unders before the season.
We can do it on the next one.
Yeah. We'll see. I think Perk will definitely be back. I don't think he'll start. I'm interested to see how he handles it if they go, hey, you're basically a defensive specialist. If we're playing the Rockets, you need to do this, or just how they handle him. Play him against Dwight Howard, play him against Roy Hibbert, play him against, some of the bigger post guys, the Grizzlies, but only for like 15 minutes. There needs to be games next year where he doesn't play. Where it's Adams and then it's small lineups. And, hey, how about a little Tibor Pleiss?
Yep.
Trunk hit hard like Tibor Pleiss.
Those games where Perk is guarding point guards the length of the floor, those are the games that he shouldn't be playing. Because that's the clearest sign of any that he doesn't have a guy to guard on the floor. When they are just saying, hey, whoever's playing center, we're ignoring you right now, and we're putting Perk the length of the floor to harass the point guard. Like, that makes no sense. It's never made sense to me. I agree with you. There are some games that he should not be playing.
Which means he shouldn't be starting.
My only question there is, if he's not starting and you're starting Steven Adams, would you just be better off playing small? Like,
No.
if there's no one for Steven,
No, Steven Adams is your future.
Yeah, but if there's no one for Perk to guard, but you're starting Steven Adams, wouldn't there be no one for Steven Adams to guard?
No, I mean, Steven Adams, he's your future starting center where, hey, make them have to guard Steven Adams. Steven Adams is a threat offensively.
That I would love to see.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, Steven Adams, like, it needs to be next year, hey, Steven Adams, unless you're in
matchup is what I want
you're
this
in
team
foul
to do
trouble,
more.
you're 21, you're our starting center of the future. I mean, you got the potential to you block a ton of shots, you get rebounds, you got the potential down the road to maybe even be an all-star.
Like, if
I don't think
Steven Adams,
that's ridiculous.
If Steven Hall of Famer, I thought.
Well, ask Reggie Jackson.
If Steven Adams was on this team 2 years ago and he was in the finals, he's the type of guy who could have made Miami pay. Rebounding, catching and finishing on the block. He don't have any post-up moves, but he could do some things offensively, just catching and finishing and getting putbacks. That's the type of player who dictates a matchup, who helps the Thunder dictate a matchup. That's what I like to see more of. When they're going with Perk and Ibaka, we're not seeing those two guys dictate matchups because Perk doesn't have an offensive game. He's not a great rebounder anymore. Serge Ibaka doesn't have a low block game, and he's mostly a jump shooter. So those guys never really dictate matchups. If Steven Adams gets in there and he's what we think he can be, then we're talking about
what he did
the Thunder
in the playoff.
imposing their will.
Was that the biggest development for this team moving forward? I mean, maybe it was Westbrook kind of figuring some.
The first guy I thought of before you finish was Russell Westbrook. I'm telling you, my respect for him, and I think what he did in this postseason. I mean, oh my goodness, that guy is going to be.
I think you got three things.
He's a top three player in my mind.
I think you got. We'll see. We'll see next season.
I think he just proved it.
We'll see. But the three things, if we're talking positive developments of this postseason, are Russell Westbrook looking like he kind of made a leap. Like, he was already obviously great, but it looked like he kind of made a leap. Number two, Serge Ibaka kind of introducing himself naturally, like, hey, I matter. And then number three, I just think Steven Adams solidified himself as like a legit NBA starter.
I would put Reggie over Steven.
No.
Reggie Jackson could be the starting two guard next season.
Yeah, I mean, he might be, and like I'm writing about that tomorrow. I think that's an important development this offseason, but I just think what Adams did. Reggie was inconsistent, but, we already knew what Reggie was capable of.
Yeah, but we knew what Steven was capable of. Reggie had a
Not
better
in the
postseason. Reggie had a better postseason than Steven Adams.
I don't know that. I mean,
What do you mean you don't know? They wouldn't even make it out of the first round if it wasn't for Reggie Jackson.
For that one Reggie Jackson game, you're right.
Yeah.
Steven
Adams never saved their lunch.
Look, I mean, Reggie Jackson is a better NBA player than Steven Adams at this point. He's more impactful. But going into the postseason, you knew Reggie was going to play 30-something minutes. In the first round, they weren't even playing Adams. Like, he wasn't even getting on the floor. By the second and third round, they had to play Adams like at least 20 minutes a night, at least. And you still felt like, why is he not playing more?
I still think Reggie is the bigger development. I mean, we're talking about Thabo Sefolosha, who fell off this year, couldn't really defend as well, couldn't shoot nearly as well. You're talking about having Jeremy Lamb potentially having to step in next year. Andre Robertson, no. Scott Brooks made a wise adjustment. He put his best 5 players on the floor for the majority of the series toward the end of the West Finals. He put Reggie Jackson in there. That, to me, is a huge development. To me, it's what he should have done 3 years ago with James Harden.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
You're right. The only argument at the time was Sefolosha was playing
Sefolosha was
better.
playing better, but James Harden is twice the player at this point.
And he's naturally
Reggie
a
Jackson
2-guard.
is.
Jackson's really a point guard. He'll let you know.
Who? You talking about James Harden?
Is naturally a 2-guard.
Yeah, so what's your point?
So it would have made more sense to start Harden at the 2.
I was about to say,
now
you're
starting
proving my point.
Jackson.
Exactly.
I'm helping you over.
And you know what Brooks did in Game 6? He staggered his rotation.
He did. He did.
He subbed Reggie Jackson out with about 5.5 minutes left, and then brought him back in to start the second quarter. I'm thinking, it took you 5 years to figure this out? Why didn't you do this with James Harden? I think James Harden would still be here. And people out there probably listening right now, they're talking about James Harden again. James Harden is a top 15 player in the world. And I'm not saying and trust me, I've defended the Thunder for the James Harden trade. I thought they made the right move. They got back great pieces. But I think James Harden would still be here if he was a starter.
Yeah, it's interesting. Anyway, best of, worst of exit interviews. We did who stays, who goes.
Worst of. There were a lot of good ones. Worst of.
Just
no knock on him. You know, he's a great dude, but Hasheem Thabeet was really unnecessary.
All right, moving on. I thought Reggie Jackson was interesting. I don't want to say worst of. I think from a PR standpoint, it might have been worst of.
Oh, yeah, definitely from their standpoint. That dude went off the reservation.
Yeah.
He's like, I want to start. Barry Trammell said, the problem is you got a point guard. Reggie's like, yeah, that's what everybody keeps saying. I'm like, this dude is just coming in here. I don't know if he was still ticked off from the loss, if he just didn't have much sleep the night before. Maybe they need to, spread out exit interviews next time. Give these guys another day of rest, because he clearly didn't care about the company line at that point.
No.
But to me, it kind of goes down as best of. You know what I loved about it? He didn't pull any of that James Harden bull.
No, he's a good interview.
He didn't say, I want to sacrifice. I want to, make it work. We could build a dynasty here. And then 4 months later, you're traded. You know what I mean? That's what Harden did. Reggie Jackson told you exactly where he stood and where he stands. He wants to start. He wants to be in control. He wants to run the team. And I'm sure he wants to get paid.
Do you think he'll be here next year? I think he'll be here next year, and then
because
I don't think they're going to do the same.
Totally
it is the Harden
situation.
summer,
but it's a totally different situation. Mm-hmm. Harden is one of the top, probably 3 shooting guards in the league,
and you had other teams willing to give him the max. Where teams are going to be willing to pay Jackson, but not
he's
the
not
max.
He's not a max player. That's why it's a totally different. He's not. I think he's going to be a great starting point guard at some point.
Yeah,
but he's not a max player.
Like
and
if he was on the Knicks right now,
he's not one of the top 10 point guards in the league. Like there's no way around it. He's a very skilled player, but he's not one of the top 10 point guards in the league. So it's a totally different situation.
Yeah. I think they're going to figure something out, and I definitely would have said they're going to that both sides want this and they want to figure something out, and they're going to this offseason. But then the exit interview when he starts popping off about how I want to be a starter and I'm a point guard, I'm a control freak and I always want to be in control, and you're sitting there like, well, yeah, we just talked to Russell Westbrook 2 minutes ago, and he kind of controls this team. It just threw a kind of wrench into it all. That's why. From a PR standpoint, for the Thunder, that was probably worst of.
There's two interesting things. The team should want to get this done.
They do. I think they do.
They should want to get it done as soon as possible to not let him sniff the open market. Because if he sniffs the open market, the Knicks the Lakers, the Mavs, the Rockets, some big market team out there, Miami, if depending on maybe not Miami, they got an interesting situation going on with LeBron and Wade and Bosh and all those guys. Boston, Rondo's situation's up in the air. There's going to be a big market team out there in need of a point guard that's going to come after him. So the Thunder, it would behoove the Thunder to get this done as soon as possible. It would behoove Jackson to get it done as soon as possible. You never know what's going to happen next year. You might trust yourself. You might have confidence in yourself to go out there and play extremely well and show them how much you're worth. But you could also get injured. You could also not have the greatest season. You could also get your minutes kind of squeezed for whatever reason. You don't know who they're going to bring in this summer. So it would behoove both parties to get it done as soon as possible. I just don't think it'll happen. I don't know if not. Ultimately, I don't know if it'll happen this summer. Because if Reggie holds out, he probably could make more money. I have no doubt he could get a bigger contract as a restricted free agent. And he's going to get a bigger role. So there are pros and cons in both sides for Reggie.
Breaking podcast news.
What's that?
From Mark Stein. Reggie Jackson signs the max deal. No. Knicks president Phil Jackson has been fined $25,000 for tampering with Oklahoma City Thunder guard Derek Fisher.
How did he tamper?
I think he made comments to the media about Fish, and Mark Berman of the Post said Oklahoma City wasn't thrilled at Jackson's remarks on Fisher and filed a complaint. Jackson fined $25,000 for tampering.
Interesting.
It is interesting, but whatever. Best of Steven Adams. What'd you think of the Adams interview today?
He's great. The guy is just, he gets it. To be 20 years old, was he 20? Is he still 20?
Yeah.
To have, he's self-effacing. He's funny as all get out.
He's like a comedian.
He just gets that, he gets when it's time to be serious and when you can just kind of let your hair down. He's not going in there and, just being all afraid of the media or the questions. He answers every question. He has fun with the questions. He's just...
And he don't mind just chilling and talking to whoever. Like, he came in, we're eating burritos, waiting for people today. We got some Chipotle, and he just comes in before his interview. He's like, nah, I'm eating.
Yeah.
And he just starts eating burritos and talking to people. And then, after he's done eating, we walk in, and then he sits down and conducts what I think is, I called it arguably the greatest exit interview or funniest exit interview in NBA history. And that sounds like an exaggeration, but go on News OK right now. We just put the video up with the transcript that I put up earlier, and watch it and then try to argue with me.
It's a stretch to say funniest in NBA history.
Think about it. I can't. There's been so many in history. But
yeah.
It was like a comedy act.
Funniest in Thunder history. There's no doubt.
There was no reason to ask him about, hey, what are you working on this offseason? You just throw funny questions at him and see where he takes it.
Yeah. He was great.
Yep. Anyway, NBA Finals, draft, free agency, any of that you want to hit before we get out of here?
At some point, we got to talk about the NBA Finals, and we probably will as the series goes on.
Let's save it till it gets going. We'll get our picks at the end.
Picks at the end of what?
At the end of this podcast. Just quick picks. So before
the
series starts. I don't know
who I'm picking, though. That's the problem.
Well, you got about probably 10 minutes to figure that out.
I know who you're picking.
Yeah.
All right, what else you got?
Picking the best player in the world.
What else you got?
NBA draft. Give me one guy you think the Thunder legitimately could realistically get and you would like to see them get.
Well, I think they might be interested in a point guard if they're going to start Reggie Jackson next year.
Yeah.
You're going to need a point guard to come off the bench. And Fisher sounds like he's going to the Knicks. So, how about, I don't think they're going to keep both of the picks. That's the problem. So
yeah, they're not.
I think they're going to try to trade up. And if they try to trade up, a guy like Shabazz Napier.
Get another UConn guy on the roster.
Yeah,
why not, right?
They're not. Well, they're about to lose one of them, maybe even two, and Hasheem Thabeet. And who knows what's going to happen with him. But they love Hasheem. So my guess is he'll be back. But a guy like Napier would be a good addition in terms of a late first-round pick, maybe even trade back into the second round. But I think they're going to do their best to try to trade up, man. So I think anybody in that probably, I don't know if they can get in the top 10, but maybe 12 to 17 range. 12 to 15 range, I'd say.
I don't think you can get up as high as 12. I think to trade.
I think you can. There's a lot of dumb GMs out there.
I think 15 is about as high as you can go.
And Presti's pretty clever.
Yeah. You know who I think would be good? I mean, maybe if you go the 21, 29 and Perry Jones, you get up to 10 to 12.
Yeah.
Anyway, you'd have to really like somebody, which they might.
I didn't say 10. I said 12 to 15.
I'm saying, and you add Perry Jones, maybe you get up to
I don't think he's going to get you in the top 10.
Yeah, I don't think so either. What if Marcus Smart falls? That'd be interesting.
Fall how far?
12-ish. I don't think he will. I think he's probably going to go about 7.
The problem is Marcus Smart is a starting point guard. Like, you can't take him and he's going to start from day one.
Couldn't you make him like a 6-man that plays 25 to 30, especially in his first year, and just he's lockdown defender?
I wouldn't do it on this team.
I think if you had the chance, you would, but I don't think they'll have the chance.
I mean, I'd trade him. I'd take him, but I'd trade him. He doesn't make sense at all to me on this team. At all.
Anyway.
No, let's talk about that. What do you mean? Anyway, you've been talking about Marcus Smart for 4 months on the Thunder. Draft is 26 days away. I don't see how Marcus Smart fits on this team.
You don't a defensive-minded, just absolute competitor.
Where's he going to play?
Like I said, 6-man. He's the third guard.
He's the third guard. But okay, so Reggie. We're assuming Reggie's starting.
Reggie's starting. Russell's starting, obviously.
Russell is going to play 35 to 37 minutes.
You know how many 3-guard lineups Brooks threw out there this season? What if you went Westbrook, Smart, Jackson, Durant, Ibaka? That is a nasty lineup. Because guess what? You think about if you're 2 guards out there. I mean, you got Reggie, who's not a great defender, but Westbrook and Smart's going to be a great NBA defender.
If Brooks staggers his rotation, if he starts Reggie Jackson, and if he staggers his rotations.
And if they somehow get Marcus Smart, which they're not going to get, but keep going.
Reggie's going to he's going to run the second unit. And you still got KD, who's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. I don't see a fit for Marcus Smart.
Like, I mean, trust me, you find a way to fit that guy in.
You're going to draft a defensive point guard with a top 10 pick? Like, on this team, what sense does that make?
Because he's going to be a really good player, and you just if there's any way to get a great player, you fit him in. There's other good players. I just threw it out there, and you acted like I was saying this is going to happen.
You don't always take the best player. You take the best fit. That's what we've seen with this team numerous times in the past. They take the best fit.
This is assuming Reggie. Best fit. What if Reggie Jackson's contract
gone?
Situation.
Then Marcus Smart makes a lot of sense.
All right. Anyway, I like Kyle Anderson from UCLA.
Oh, I haven't seen enough of him.
You mentioned point guard. They're gonna need a backup point guard. He's a taller point guard. I think he's like 6'7".
6'9".
6'7". I think
he might be 7 foot. Too tall, man.
Well, then you got Kevin Durant at point, although I don't think he can shoot, or he's just skilled. That's the guy I kind of like. All right, free agency. Give me one guy, realistically.
Realistically, this dude don't make Anthony Morrow. He's not a huge impact player, but that's a realistic 3-point shooter who you could bring in and space the floor. Yeah. Now, someone who might be a tad unrealistic, Trevor Ariza. But he probably make more of an impact.